Hello and welcome to our weekly share with the commentary of the Alshich Kodesh. This week's parsha is Chaye Sarah. Let's start as usual with dedicating the share for the Refuah Shlema. Some people who need that dedication. So let's start with Uriah Chaim ben Chani Yehudis, the little boy who's waiting for the lung transplant. Refuah Chaim ben Sarah. Let's also this week Shalom Mordechai ben Sarah Risa, who's been not well, but Baruch Hashem is on the mend. But let's include him in our prayers. Chaim Mordechai Dov ben Esther is having big surgery this week, so that's happening for him as well. Yecheska Yehuda ben Yenta, who's living in Israel and is not well, and I think that Shmuel ben Chana, who lives in England. Okay. That will do for the start. It's probably going to be quite a shorter share than normal for the very simple reason it's a very short Friday, and I've got lots of shopping to do because on Sunday I am going to Manchester in England ahead 2 days. 2 days, arriving on Monday, 2 days ahead of the marriage of my first grandchild, my wonderful granddaughter. My grandma is getting married to a fabulous girl called Shlomi from Melbourne, Australia. So, Mazel Tov to me, and you should also, and we should also, Klal Yisrael only celebrate Simchas and good news. This week's parsha is Chaye Sarah. So much in Chaye Sarah, its focus is very, very much on the marriage of the Shidduch and then marriage, so it's rather appropriate. After what I've just been talking about, of Yitzchak and Rivka. And so just that one element of that I want to focus on in the Alshich. So let me tell you what it's about. And then I'm going to introduce what the Alshich has to say by looking at the Vilna Gaon, his parish on Mishlei. So let me just open my little art scroll Chumash that I like to use. It's easily accessible. And I'll read to you this, if you want to follow along with me, and you have an art scroll, then you will know that it is on page 120. If you don't, then we're in Kof Dalet, Posuk Kof Dalet, and Posuk Samad Gimel. So now Eliezer has collected Rivka, and off they go back to Eretz Yisrael for, as it were, the Shidduch, or the creation of the new family. And so I'm going to turn the brightness down a little bit. I hope that's a better picture for you. But Yetze Yitzchak L'Suach Basoni. So Yitzchak goes out L'Suach. And of course, this is the reference because Avram was the first person to innovate davening in the morning. Yitzchak is Mincha. His innovation in prayer is Mincha. And Yaakov, of course, is Marav. So this is the reference to Yitzchak as we're going out to pray. But Yitzchak L'Suach Basoni, it goes out to, so how do we translate that? Supplicate. Okay. Similar to Sicha, meaning to speak. And Lifnas Arab towards evening, but Yisainov, and he lifts up his eyes, but Yar, and he sees that he need Gemalim Boim, there are camels coming. Batisa Rivka is in a home, and Rivka, his bride to be, lifts up her eyes for Sarah es Sarah es Yitzchak, she says Yitzchak, but Tipo me al hagomel. Now they normally translate that she falls or she gets down from the donkey, the camel she's coming on. I'm trying to see how they say it here. So then she inclined while on the camel. There's a bit of a debate with that, and most opinions say she actually turns away to the other side. We'll see what comes next. The other side of the camel. So Yitzhak's coming in this side, so she turns away. We'll see what that means. It's all about in a second. But Tamar Evan, she says to the Evan, that's the Ezer Abrams, a greatest Talmud. Mi ha'isha lozeh, who is this man? Ha-lozeh, strange word. Ha-holech basad, who's coming in the field. L'krasina, to me, as a yama ha'eved hu adoni, that is my master. Yitzchak batikach atzoif v'tikach, the deceased cause. Sorry, I burped in the middle, and she covers her face. Okay. And then Eliezer tells Yitzhak all the story up till now. And he takes Rivka into his tent, and he loves Beyev. He loves her, and he's comforted after the death of his mother because all the three miracles that were constant miracles through the Skusasora, that as the Shekhinah appearing on top of the tent, the challah which she made for Shabbos lasting the whole week, and the lights that she lit for Shabbos never going out from week to week. So she'd have to relight them every week, extinguish them, then relight. These three miracles manifested themselves, so he knew that this was truly his zivug, his match. Fine, that's what we're going to look at. Now, before I want to tell you what the Alshich says, which is deep and rather Kabbalistic and quite very, very satisfying, I want to turn to the Vilna Gaon. Because even though there's a Kabbalistic aspect to what we're going to look at, there's a very practical, common sense aspect of what I want to extract from the Alshich this week, something that I think is extraordinarily applicable in our own lives, our own relationship and the journey that we're on with or we're attempting to be on with Hashem. So let's me read to you what it says. This is in Mishli. It's in chapter Yud Daled, and he says the following thing, and it's in Posuk base. So Yud Daled base. Choilech b'yoshroi, a man who goes, or a woman who goes, a person who goes b'yoshros, in the straight path. Yirah Hashem is someone who is a Yirah Hashem. The Nolois drochav boizehu, but somebody who swerves off that path, Hashem disparages. Strange words, but Shlomo Melech, of course, Mishli is code. It is a code, and it's cryptic, and it needs to be decoded and deciphered in order to understand what it's saying. Let me repeat that to you again. He says, Hoylech beyoshroi Yirah Hashem. A Yirah Hashem, somebody who follows God, goes in the straight path, and v'nilois, and somebody who swears off that path, drochav bazehu, Hashem disparages. That's what it's saying. So listen very carefully to the words of the Vilna Gaon and see if this resonates with you in your life. It certainly resonates with me. Maybe a little brief sentence of an introduction. So very often, our behavior as Frum Jews is determined by our fear of disapproval of the community or other Frum Jews. So let's see what the Vilna Gaon has to say about that. So Holach b'yashra Yirah Hashem. Somebody who's God-fearing will follow on the path of Hashem. Everybody's got to go in their own path, the path that's appropriate for him or for her. Because we're not all the same. It's not, as they say in America, cookie cutter. That we're all from the same stamp, from the same mold. Not at all. And because we're all individuals, and because our midas and the chemistry, as it were, the ingredients that go to make up the individual that I am, that you are, then we are susceptible in our uniqueness to particular challenges, negative and positive. And so he says, therefore, that you will have temptation for a particular affair. Let's say you're born with a strong sense of anger, then obviously anger is your big challenge. But so therefore, as you know that is your personality and that's your challenge, therefore that's your journey. And like all journeys, you have to make sure that you stay on the road straight and narrow, and maybe set up guardrails, like you have at 10-pin bowling they put up for kids who can't bowl yet, little guardrails to keep the ball on course and it doesn't go into the gutter. Then similarly, you have to do the exact same thing with your life. And when I say your life, that means everything that goes to make up you. So where are my weaknesses? I will set up Gedorim, fences, to protect myself from not getting involved in that area which I know I'm weak in. That's why you're going in the straight path. So that goes back to our posuk. Somebody who's God-fearing will go in the straight path. Your straight path, because you fear God, and not because you fear other people, when you go in the general path, which is not appropriate for you. Somebody else needs a different path and needs different guardrails. You do as Masha with Sarah, you've got to know what you need. So despite what other people might be doing, you've got to go on the path that satisfies and secures your safe arrival when you're 120 back up in Shemaim, having made a successful journey. And that's what a Yirah Hashem ki misyara hu shalo yovelidi avera. So somebody who is a God-fearing person, you fear you're going to stumble and slip up. Machmas tivoy harogoboy, through the nature that you have. That's what it means. So somebody who is God-fearing will go beyashroi, in his straight path, beyashroi. But somebody who's not, the opposite, read a little bit of this. But somebody who swerves off that path, somebody who swerves off and takes away the guardrails, which he needs, Bashil his goyes be'eni abrias, so that he looks good in the eyes of everybody else. Wow, he's doing what everybody else does, which is utterly inappropriate. He needs to do what he needs to do. Lois is so that he's doing what's straight in their eyes, not what's straight in God's eyes. Then afal pi shaloi hura. Then that will come out to be very, very bad. And you'll come from that to eventually do things which are wrong, unsurprisingly. Kadosh Baruch Hashem disparages or despises such a thing. You do you know what's good for you, you know what's necessary for you, and you don't do it. That's the introduction I want to quote from the Vilna Gaon, which leads us into the Alshich. So we turn to the Alshich, and there's something tremendously, it's genius here, well, as usual, and it's quite short, but I think it leads to a very, very big conclusion in this rather brief share, given, as I said, my necessity to go and buy gifts going back to Manchester. Okay, so why ma his pila atzmami al hagmal, says the Alshich. Why is it that she turns to the other side, the other direction, when she's sitting in the camel, when she sees Yitzchak coming towards her? So this is what he says, and this is the Kabbalistic bit. He says, because she was intimidated, might be a translation, certainly in awe, that would be a better translation, of the fact that his face shone. His face shines. We're talking about Yitzchak, who's been offered up as a korban to Hashem, Akedas Yitzchak, one of the total foundation stones upon which the entire Jewish people and the whole of human history is built. He is very, very holy and at a very high level. And if you remember Moshe Rabbeinu, when he comes down from Mount Sinai, his face shines. Well, that presence, that, as it were, residue of having come face to face with God, or perhaps the fact that God, the Shekhinah, is with Moshe Rabbeinu, that applies to Yitzchak as well, but I'll read on. She was in awe at how he appeared. I heard people say about the Manchester Rosh Hashiva, and this is an exaggeration, of course. However, it always worked for me as an example, an illustration of this idea. People used to say he first had a long white beard, and he says shone. And in a real sense, it did. But this is more than, as it were, reading into it. His face did shine. Yitzchak's face did shine. And she thought, as she sees this man coming, it's either going to be Yitzchak, he's in the distance, but she sees his face is shining. This man's face can either belong to Yitzchak, who she's supposed to marry, or his father, Avram. But both were the same, so she's not sure who it is. So therefore, there's only two people that have that phenomenon. Now, if you look at the pasuk, now we're getting to the Alshich stuff. The word es, aleph sof, is always a reboot, something else. So it says, if you look at the pasuk, Vatisa Rivka es eineho, she lifts up her eyes, Basira es Yitzchak, es. So it's something else, Yitzchak or es or Avram. She's not sure who. Ve'im nosim lev el ribo es, and why is it an extra es? Oma es eneha yekiba ovas hein merkova al shchina hoyase imayim. She sees the fact that there's only the ovas, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, became the, as it were, the place or the person through whom the shchina, the presence of God, was felt in the world. That's what causes the face to shine. There's such a high level, as it were, that the Shekhinah, the presence of God, attaches itself, or surrounds them, a better way to put it, sits on them, and of course that's why the face lights up. S, and that's why it says the S, the extra word S, to imply that it's not just, it's either Abram or Yitzchak. That's the S, because there's two S's here. But we've got S in Eha, but here S Yitzchak. And there's also the extra S refers to the Shekhinah that attaches itself to it. But Tira es a Yeled, but you see the same thing, and they saw the Yeled, Sha'amra, that says in Shmuel Shrabba, that's regards to Moshe Rabbeinu, that his face shone. She saw the Yeled. Is that there's the same construct of words, which implies the same thing, just like Moshe's face shone, and there was something special about this child. They could see that the Shekhinah was there. The Shekhinah was in Yitzchak and Abram as well. And therefore she sees this, and she looks away, just like Moshe Rabbeinu looked away at the burning bush because the Shekhinah was there, and he simply looked away. It's awesome. The kol shekin Rivka shara ziva shchina. You see, it's the same thing. Nevos the tipo me al gamal kibusha me chasnach ziv shchina saimai. So the same way out of respect, Moshe Rabbeinu looked away because the Shekhinah is there. She's not looking away from Yitzhak. She's looking away from the Shekhinah, the presence of God that manifests himself around Yitzchak. So she looks away as well. It's a symbol of kavod. A little bit more. Now, I said this strange word. Who is this man halozeh instead of miho ish hazeh? What's the halozeh? Now, there's an echo there because that phrase is used elsewhere. Who lemer loy el titomish atzmi me'al hagamal ki ilo nasati el libi ki hu ishi ki halo shnei devorim re'isi ki intimate. Why she's saying to who is this person? What's she implying to Eliezer? There are two things that's causing me to look away. The first one, because the word ish is the word with many words in Hebrew for man, but none. Remember my rule I keep knocking out here, and that is there's no such thing as a synonym in Lashon HaKodesh. So even though we've got a gibor and ish and odom and all different words for a man, but all different aspects of man. Ish is the highest level. So when she's really saying, the translation should be saying, who is this astonishing man who's coming towards us? They can honor halazu. That's why it says in Bereshit, Sharosa had a hadar ki Yosef she'omer halazu, because Yosef, you'll find the same word halazu with Yosef. Yosef also was somebody who was physically different, who as it were, his face shone. People could see there was something special about this person. And the second reason, now she says, this is interesting, who is this man who's coming in the field to see us? Now this is so exciting. He says, who is this man who's coming in the field? But it doesn't say that. Who's going in the field? Why is he going in the field? He says, who's coming in the field? After all, he's coming towards them. But Gam Omer Basode, who misses, why did it say in the field? Just say coming to meet us. Why in the field? No, as the rabbi is saying, it's obviously her man who she's fated to marry. Is coming to pray. He's coming in the field, and if you look at the posset before in Kof Daled Samak Gimel, it says Lafanas Erev, Yitzchak goes out to pray in the field towards the evening. He lifts up his head. In a gemalim boy. Camels are coming. Camels are coming in the field. What are they doing in the field? They should be on the road. But when they see him, now he's going there to pray, not to meet Rivka. He doesn't know she's there. They're going to meet him, but they don't know that he's in the field. But the camels just go. It's engineered, in other words, the whole thing by God. This rendezvous is because it's divinely planned from the beginning, is divinely orchestrated along the way to achieve the goal. So therefore, he says, that's why it says the camels are coming. Camels are coming, are passing, they're actually coming towards him. The animals seem to know this is their destination. They're coming right to meet him. To me, Rivka, and she's astonished at this. So the animals are like the Tesla or the new electric cars that sort of drive themselves. I suppose you might get a fright if you've programmed into the map, the GPS of your Tesla that you want to go to Glasgow and you end up in Paris. He's not. They're not going on the road. Kavusha McFish. Rag basada b'seicha mashola b'derech. It's the camels just walked off into the field. The and why? To meet us. The reason is, who's this coming to meet us? That's the reason she understands the camels are going off the road. Who's this person coming to meet us? And we, how can he be coming to meet us when we've got off the road? You want to meet somebody who's coming. If Yitzchak was expecting the arrival of his bride, he'd walk along the road to meet her. She'll be coming on the road, not in the field. but they're coming together because Hashem has arranged that. Which is saying, now, why is it coming to me? But that indicates to her that this is the man indeed who is been engineered, who is the other half of her soul. And then the Alshich adds two very interesting words, or three words. Umazli umazloi chozu. I see his mazel and my mazel. We are beshert. We are fated to be together. This is, as it were, the greatest testimony to that, attestation to that. So she's astonished that such a thing can happen. It's really quite an open miracle. And then we come to the next bit. And this is the bit when we leave the Kabbalistic and mystical side of it to something very, very practical. And it relates to my introduction from the Vilna Gaon, when the Vilna Gaon says, from the Pasuk, a man has to know, a woman has to know her path in life. If you're a Yerushalayim, you know what your path is, Drochov, your path in life. And your path in life might be different to other people's, and certainly different to the herd, different to the, here's the wrong word, but the group, to the whichever group you belong to. As long as you secure your path, and the path is appropriate for you, then you'll secure the destination. But if you swerve off because you want to conform to whatever fashions or whatever people think you should be doing, that's profoundly dangerous. As the Gemara famously says, better to be thought as a lunatic your entire life than to be thought a lunatic for 1 second by God. So he says, Adoni. So Eliezer, she says, who is this? He says, Adoni, this is my master, i.e., well, it's actually ambiguous. Remember, is it Avram or is it Yitzchak? It's my master. So it's either or, either Yitzchak or Avram as the master of Eliezer. And she realizes this is the shidduch, this is the marriage, this is the meeting of the two halves, the pair. And neither of them came intending, it wasn't designed by either of them. And then when she realizes that, she takes her veil and covers her face. Now, that's really what I want to focus on. She covers her face with a veil. Listen to what the Alshich says here. Can I just remind you that the Alshich was the teacher of the Arizal. He got smicha from Rabbi Yosef Karo, who was the Av Beis Din of Sfas. He was the teacher of Chaim Vital. He was the teacher of a Talmud of Moshe Cordovero, the Alshich HaKodesh. Now listen to what the holy Alshich has to say about Rivka covering her face and how that applies to you and I. So he says, because of her incredible amount of tznius that she had, then, I've lost the place, sorry. As to I'll go back to that. She covers her face. And the Medrash says, Shnaim Nichnasu b'tzayif. There were two, so forgive my stumble there. So she covers her face. The Medrash says there were two people who covered their face, who wore a veil. And the two people in the Torah who covered their face, both had twins. Both had twins. Rivka v'Tomar. Tomar and Yehuda, and Rivka and Yitzchak, of course, well-known stories, obviously. If you I missed out a line. And that indicates that through her tremendous tznius, her incredible modesty, that in both cases, their tremendous modesty, they were blessed by a double blessing, not just a child, but two childs, twins. It says in Tehillim, as the famous pasuk says in Tehillim, your wife will be like the vine, clusters of grapes, not a singular grape, but clusters of grapes, plurality of children, and indeed, there's no greater plurality than children, as it were, than twins. And they will your house will be blessed. So there was two people that blessing applies to. Shehu bekise ha'otuf yesen. Now, here's the important word, double underlined in my Alshich. Shehu kisei ha'otuf yoser, which is a level of tznius which is beyond yoser, more than tznius demands, more than is strictly necessary, But in the case of Rivka at this moment, who is meeting Yitzchak, and the Shekhinah is there, the presence of God is there, then she covers her face. It's a level of tznius which applies to Rivka meeting Yitzchak with the Shekhinah there. Then it's appropriate. But it's not appropriate in our society and in our time. That's not what Jewish women do. And of course, there's a lot of, recently there's been a fashion for Jewish women to dress like Muslim women. But you have to know what's right for you at the right time, as the Vilna Gaon says, and doing something which is more than is appropriate for you and that isn't for your soul, and the need to aspire way beyond your level simply because it is a fashion, is a disastrous mistake. A disastrous mistake. But let me read on the Alshich. And those women, now of course, when Tomer, who, remember, understands, because her father, who is a Nobi, told her that Yehuda is now ready at this moment to father a child. He's going up to shear the sheep, going out to shear the sheep. We'll get to that, I'm sure, in a week or so. When he's going out to shear the sheep, when she realizes that this is the chance to create the next link in the chain of the Mashiach. Again, this is not just an ordinary marriage, not just an ordinary conception of a child. This is special. This is a moment when the Shekhinah is there. Both cover their faces. Both recognize that and both cover their faces. The Alshich will echo this idea or amplify it in a second. And the result was they both have twins. Law Makerhu, it wasn't accidental. It's because she understands what's going on here, and her tznius is appropriate to that. And she recognizes that, and that she is rewarded in that to have twins. But you're talking she'ikar hakavona, and we've only got 5 lines to go, we're finished. Lelamed letomer mirivka. But there's also something else here, says the Alshich, which is very, very important. There's something we have to learn from Rivka that applies or connects to Tomer. So he says, because if you have a simplistic reading of the story of Yehuda and Tomer, she's standing at the crossroads and people think she's a zona, she's a prostitute, etc., etc. If that is, you've just read the Chumash in English, never a good idea. Or if you just read it in Hebrew without any commentaries, as you've heard me say many times before, what has the Chumash got to do with Judaism? We don't believe in the Chumash. We don't believe that Moshe Rabbeinu was given the Chumash in Mount Sinai. We believe he was given the Torah Sheb'Ksav and the Torah Shebaal Peh. Both. With the insight and the understanding of the Torah Shebaal Peh, you understand what's going on. So if you've got a simplistic idea, or even if you've got a deep idea, but still the idea, why does it have to be in that way? Talked about that many, many times in my sharing. Then hekish akisis b'sayif ladas avaledas to umim kevrivka yoreshova. Then you should, as the Medrash has just pointed out to you, remember that there's only 2 who covered their face and were rewarded by twins, and that was Tomer and Rivka, or rather Rivka and Tomer. It connects Rivka and Tomer, just as Rivka's motivation and Rivka's behavior here was 100% let Shem Shemayim for the sake of God, and appropriate for her on that level. So too was Tomer. It's a much more complicated story, perhaps, certainly one that doesn't look so nice. I mean, this is just a nice, spooky, mystical shidduch, while the other one looks horrible. But you have to realize that Tomer's motivation was precisely the same as Rivka's, with precisely the same outcome. As I'll explain later on, she covers her face so that nobody sees her, because really her marriage is going to be to Yehuda, and only her husband will be able to see her face. So according to the Alshich, she covered herself so that nobody else could see her, only Yehuda. That's the sort of tznius which is appropriate for that sort of level of a marriage, and that sort of level of a relationship between a woman, and as the concept of tznius. You have to know, as the Vilna Gaon says, what's my level? If your level, or if your particular makeup and nature and midas requires a specific approach to succeed in your relationship with God, that's the way you go. But if it is not appropriate, then Hashem, as the Pasuk saw in Mishnah says, despises or disparages those who simply adopt and practice certain customs which are simply not reflective of who and what we are. It is who and what Rivka was or is. It is who and what Tomer was or is. But it's not for most Jewish women, or any Jewish women perhaps, in our generation. None of us are on that level. As the Alshich HaKodesh says, this is Sneas Yoiser, more than is requested. More than requested for somebody who's a Rivka or Tomer, of course. But unless you can fill out the application form and check all the boxes that Rivka and Tomer check, or tick, as they say in England, then maybe you should just sit back, look at that posuk in Mishlei, and with a commentary of the Vilna Gaon and say, no, what's my approach? What's the right thing for me in order to be mashlim, to perfect my relationship with God, to become a Yerushalayim? I'll look forward to seeing you next week. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do this year next week because I'll be in Manchester, busy speaking at Shepherd Brochus and going to weddings and also some nice things. But if I'm able to get to my little iPad and make another share, I will be very happy to see you. We should have a week of Shalom Yisrael and Yisrael Chai.